Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub. What if I told you that somewhere in an old piggy bank, a forgotten drawer, or even your pocket right now, there could be a coin so valuable that finding it would instantly change your entire life? A coin that looks absolutely ordinary but carries a price tag that could buy you a luxury home, a fleet of cars, and financial freedom for generations to come? Most people walk past pennies on the street without a second glance, thinking they're worthless pieces of copper barely worth bending down for. But what they don't realize is that certain pennies from specific years with particular characteristics have sold for amounts that would make your head spin. And today we're talking about one of the most jaw-dropping examples in numismatic history, the 1950 DeWitt penny, a coin that has reached valuations of up to $9.5 million. Yes, you heard that right, $9.5 million for a penny. And before you think this is just some fantasy or exaggeration, let me tell you that this coin exists, collectors are desperately hunting for it, and the reasons behind its astronomical value will absolutely blow your mind. But here's the thing, before we dive deep into every fascinating detail about this 1950 DeWitt penny, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video because after we uncover all the secrets of this incredible coin, we're going to reveal another wheat penny from 1953 that's worth $6 million. And trust me when I say the story behind that one is even more mysterious and fascinating, filled with mint errors, historical anomalies, and discovery tales that will leave you checking every single penny you own. Now, let's talk about why the 1950 DeWitt penny has become such a legendary piece in the world of coin collecting. And to understand its value, we need to travel back in time to post-World War II America, a period of tremendous economic growth, industrial expansion, and significant changes in the way the United States Mint operated its facilities across the country. The Denver Mint, designated by the small D mint mark that appears on coins produced at this facility, was working at full capacity in 1950 to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage as the American economy boomed and commerce expanded at unprecedented rates. The wheat penny design itself, featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and 2 stalks of wheat, flanking the words 1 cent on the reverse, had been in production since 1909 and was beloved by the American public, representing not just currency but a connection to the nation's agricultural heritage and the values of hard work and prosperity. In 1950, the Denver Mint struck over 334 million wheat pennies, which sounds like an enormous number that would make these coins extremely common, and under normal circumstances you'd be absolutely right to think that a coin with such a high mintage would be worth only face value or perhaps a few cents to a collector. However, and this is where things get absolutely fascinating, what makes certain 1950 DeWitt pennies worth millions of dollars isn't just their age or the mint mark. It's the presence of extraordinary errors that occurred during the minting process, errors so rare and so dramatic that only a handful of examples are known to exist. And when one of these error coins surfaces at auction, collectors with deep pockets engage in fierce bidding wars that drive prices into the stratosphere. The most valuable 1950 DeWitt pennies are those that feature what numismatists call a double die obverse error, a minting mistake that occurs when the die used to strike the coin's design onto the blank planchet is itself struck multiple times during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect in the design elements that's visible to the naked eye and absolutely unmistakable under magnification. On the most valuable 1950 D double die pennies, you can see dramatic doubling in Lincoln's profile, particularly around his eye, ear, and the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust, creating a ghostly shadow effect that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional. And this isn't just a minor variation that requires expert eyes to detect. We're talking about bold, obvious doubling that jumps out at you the moment you look at the coin closely. What makes this error so incredibly rare is that it was caught relatively quickly by mint officials who recognized the problem and destroyed most of the affected dies before many error coins could be struck and released into circulation. But as with all the most valuable error coins in history, a small number managed to escape the mint and enter the money supply, finding their way into cash registers, piggy banks, and coin collections across the Denver area. For decades, these coins circulated unnoticed, changing hands in everyday transactions, sitting in jars of change, and being spent on candy, newspapers, and bus fare, with absolutely no one realizing they were handling pieces of metal that would one day be worth more than most people's houses. The first confirmed discovery of a 1950 double-die wheat penny in exceptional condition happened in the early 1990s, when a collector in Colorado was going through inherited coins from his grandfather's estate, casually examining each penny under a magnifying glass as he sorted wheat pennies from later memorial designs, when suddenly he noticed something unusual about one particular 1950 penny. The letters in Liberty appeared to have a strange shadow or echo, and Lincoln's profile seemed somehow different from other pennies he'd examined. Initially thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him, he pulled out a more powerful loupe and examined the coin under bright light, and that's when he realized he was looking at something potentially extraordinary, a possible major mint error that could be incredibly valuable if authenticated by professional graders. He immediately contacted several major coin dealers and submitted the penny to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the numismatic world, and after weeks of careful examination and authentication, the experts confirmed what he had hoped. This was indeed a genuine 1950 double-die obverse penny in remarkable MS-65 condition, meaning it had never been circulated and retained its original mint luster and sharp details. The coin was encapsulated in a protective holder with a label describing the error and its grade, and the collector, who had inherited a collection he originally thought was worth maybe a few $100s, suddenly found himself holding a numismatic treasure worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible value trajectory. As word spread through the tight-knit community of serious coin collectors about this amazing discovery, interest in 1950 wheat pennies exploded, and suddenly collectors across the country were frantically searching through their old penny collections, hoping to find one of these elusive double-die errors, checking mint marks, examining designs under magnification, and learning everything they could about how to spot the characteristics that distinguish a multimillion-dollar error from a common penny worth 1 cent. What happened next is the stuff of numismatic legend. Several more examples of the 1950 double-die error were discovered over the following years, each one creating a sensation in the collecting community and selling for ever-increasing prices as collectors competed to own one of these incredibly rare pieces of minting history. One example that surfaced in 1998, graded MS-66 and therefore in even better condition than the first discovery, sold at auction for an astounding $287,500, absolutely shattering previous records for wheat penny prices and proving that serious collectors were willing to pay astronomical sums for the right coin in the right condition. But that wasn't even close to the peak of what these coins could achieve. In 2006, another example graded MS-67, meaning it was in virtually perfect condition with no visible flaws even under magnification, came to auction and collectors went absolutely crazy, with bidding quickly surpassing $500,000 as two determined collectors battled for ownership, and when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was a breathtaking $1.70 million, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold at that time. And here's where the story gets even more incredible. In recent years, as the rare coin market has continued to heat up with wealthy collectors, investors, and even hedge funds viewing rare coins as alternative assets that can appreciate faster than traditional investments, the valuations on the finest known examples of major error coins have reached levels that would have seemed impossible just a decade or two ago. The absolute finest known example of the 1950 double-die obverse wheat penny, graded MS-68 and considered essentially perfect, is currently valued at up to $9.5 million based on private sale offers and expert appraisals, though it hasn't come to public auction because the current owner has refused all offers, recognizing that this coin is not just a financial asset, but a piece of American history that may never be duplicated. Think about what this means. Someone could have spent this penny on a pack of gum in 1950. It could have been tossed into a fountain. It could have been lost between couch cushions or thrown away as worthless. And yet, through a combination of minting error, survival, preservation, and the passionate collecting community that recognizes and values such rarities, this humble penny has become worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. But what if you're wondering whether you might have one of these valuable 1950 D pennies hiding in your own collection? And the answer is yes, it's absolutely possible. And that's what makes the hunt for rare coins so addictively exciting. While the MS-68 example worth millions is certainly out of reach for most people, other examples of the 1950 D double die error in lower grades have been discovered in recent years in estate collections, old bank bags, and rolls of wheat pennies that collectors purchased decades ago and never fully examined, proving that these treasures are still out there waiting to be found. Even a circulated example of this error, showing where from being spent and handled over the years, would still be worth tens of thousands of dollars at minimum, and a nice uncirculated example could easily fetch six figures at auction today given the tremendous demand from collectors who want to own one of numismatics' most famous error coins. The key to identifying a genuine 1950 D double die obverse is knowing exactly what to look for. You need to examine the date and mint mark first to confirm you have a 1950 D penny. Then, using at least a 10x magnification loupe, carefully study the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust, looking for clear doubling where it appears the letters were stamped twice with slight misalignment, creating a shadow or echo effect particularly visible on the letters L, B, E, and T in Liberty. You should also examine Lincoln's eye, ear, and the bow tie area for doubling effects. And if you see bold, obvious doubling in multiple locations on the obverse of the coin, not just minor machine doubling or die deterioration which are common and worthless, then you may have found something genuinely special that needs to be authenticated by professionals. It's also worth noting that beyond the famous double die error, other 1950 D wheat pennies have value for different reasons. Off-center strikes where the design wasn't properly centered on the planchet, wrong planchet errors where wheat penny dies accidentally struck dime or foreign coin blanks, and even high-grade uncirculated examples without errors can be worth $20 to $50 or more to collectors building complete sets of wheat pennies in nice condition. The 1950 D is also part of what collectors call the short set of wheat pennies from 1934 to 1958, a popular collecting goal that's more achievable than trying to collect every wheat penny from 1909 forward, and nice examples are always in demand. Beyond just the monetary value, what makes the 1950 D wheat penny story so compelling is what it represents about chance, preservation, and the unexpected ways that ordinary objects can become extraordinary. This was a coin meant to buy newspapers and candy bars, a simple tool of commerce that would normally have worn out and been melted down decades ago, and yet through a minting mistake and the dedication of collectors who recognize and preserve such errors, it has become a legend in numismatics, a tangible piece of mid-century American history, and a reminder that treasures can hide in the most unexpected places. Imagine the stories this coin could tell if it could talk. The hands it passed through in 1950s Denver, the purchases it facilitated, the children who might have found it in their change and spent it on ice cream, never knowing they had held something that would one day be priceless. And now imagine that right now, at this very moment, you might have one of these coins sitting unnoticed in an old collection, a jar of pennies, or even in current circulation because yes, even though it's unlikely, these coins could theoretically still be found in pocket change if someone spent one without knowing its value. The hunt for rare coins isn't just about the money, although finding a penny worth millions would certainly be life-changing. It's about the thrill of discovery, the connection to history, the detective work of authentication, and the knowledge that you're preserving something significant for future generations of collectors and historians who will marvel at these minting mistakes just as we do today. And listen, if you're feeling excited about the 1950 wheat penny and everything we've uncovered about why it's worth up to $9.5 million, you absolutely need to keep watching because what's coming next is going to blow your mind even further. We're about to explore another wheat penny from just 3 years later, the 1953 wheat penny, and let me tell you, this coin has a story that's somehow even more mysterious, even more unexpected, with authentication controversies, discovery stories that sound like fiction, and a current valuation of $6 million that has collectors around the world desperately searching their penny collections hoping to strike it rich. So whatever you do, don't click away now because the best is yet to come, and you won't believe what makes the 1953 wheat penny so incredibly special. Last 1953 wheat penny. If you thought the 1950 story was incredible, buckle up because what we're about to uncover regarding the 1953 wheat penny will leave you absolutely speechless. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that this coin has become one of the most sought-after and mysteriously valuable pennies in all of American numismatics, with the finest known examples commanding prices up to $6 million, and the path to discovering why this particular year became so extraordinarily valuable is filled with intrigue, controversy, unexpected discoveries, and the kind of detective work that makes coin collecting feel like a treasure hunt. Let me set the scene for you. It's 1953. America is in the midst of tremendous post-Korean War prosperity. President Eisenhower is in the White House. Television is becoming a household staple, and the U.S. Mint is churning out hundreds of millions of pennies to support an economy that's growing faster than almost any time in history, with the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints all working overtime to meet demand for circulating coinage. The 1953 wheat penny was produced in massive quantities across all 3 mint facilities, with Philadelphia alone striking over 256 million pennies that year, Denver adding another 700 million, and San Francisco contributing approximately 181 million. And with numbers like that, you'd think these coins would be among the most common and therefore least valuable wheat pennies in existence, worth maybe a few cents each to collectors and otherwise just face value, right? Wrong, and here's where the story takes a turn into the absolutely extraordinary because what collectors discovered decades after 1953 was that certain pennies from this year contain errors so rare, so visually dramatic, and so highly prized that they've become some of the most expensive coins in the entire wheat penny series, with specific varieties that appear maybe once in several million coins, making them rarer than many legendary numismatic rarities that sell for 6 and 7 figures. The most famous and valuable variety of the 1953 wheat penny is what experts call the 1953 D/D/D triple die obverse, an error so unusual that when the first example was authenticated, numismatists literally couldn't believe what they were seeing because triple die errors are extraordinarily uncommon compared to the double die errors we discussed earlier, and this particular example shows tripling in the date and lettering that's visible even without magnification if you know what to look for. But before we dive into that specific variety, we need to understand the full spectrum of valuable 1953 wheat pennies because there are actually multiple different error types and varieties from this year that command serious money, and knowing about all of them gives you the best chance of recognizing one if you ever encounter it in your collecting journey. First, there's the 1953 double die obverse from the Philadelphia Mint, which shows strong doubling in the date and the motto "In God We Trust," particularly on the letters T and R in trust where you can see clear separation between the primary and secondary images, creating that ghostly shadow effect that's the hallmark of true double die errors. These coins in high grades can sell for anywhere from $50,000 to over $400,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and the condition of the coin, and several dozen examples are known to exist, making them rare but not impossible to find if you search enough rolls of wheat pennies or examine enough estate collections. Then there's the 1953 double die obverse from the San Francisco Mint, which features dramatic doubling on Liberty and the date, with some examples showing tripling on certain letters, and these coins are even rarer than the Philadelphia version with fewer than 20 confirmed examples known to exist, and a gem uncirculated specimen sold at auction in 2019 for an astounding $1.20 million, proving that serious collectors will pay virtually any price to acquire the finest examples of significant error coins. But the crown jewel, the ultimate prize, the single most valuable variety of 1953 wheat penny is the Denver Mint triple die obverse we mentioned earlier, a coin so rare that only 3 specimens have been confirmed authentic by major grading services, making it literally one of the rarest American coins in existence regardless of denomination or era. And the story of how these coins were discovered and authenticated reads like a numismatic thriller. The first example surfaced in 2003 when an elderly woman in Colorado brought a collection of old coins to a local dealer for appraisal, explaining that her late husband had been a casual collector who enjoyed going through bank rolls of pennies in the 1960s and 1970s looking for wheat cents to save, and among the hundreds of wheat pennies in his collection, stored in old cardboard folders and largely forgotten in a closet for decades, the dealer noticed something that made his heart skip a beat. A 1953 D penny that showed unusual characteristics in the date and lettering. Under magnification, he could see what appeared to be triple images in the digits 1 and 9 of the date, as well as triple impressions in several letters of Liberty and I in God We Trust, creating an effect he had never encountered before in all his years of examining error coins. And he immediately knew this was something potentially extraordinary that needed expert authentication. He convinced the woman to let him submit the coin to PCGS for professional grading and authentication, and after several weeks of careful examination during which the coin was studied by multiple experts, measured under high magnification, and compared to known die varieties and error types, PCGS announced that they were authenticating this coin as a genuine 1953 D triple die obverse, graded MS64, and they encapsulated it with a special label noting the extreme rarity of this variety. The coin was valued at the time at approximately $800,000, a figure that left the woman who inherited it absolutely stunned, because she had almost donated the entire collection to charity without having it appraised. News of this discovery spread like wildfire through the numismatic community, and suddenly collectors everywhere were frantically searching their 1953 D pennies, hoping to find another example of this incredible error, examining dates and lettering with powerful magnification, comparing their coins to the images that PCGS published, and dreaming of striking it rich with a coin that had been sitting unnoticed for half a century. But despite thousands of collectors searching through millions of 1953 D pennies, no additional examples were found for several years, leading some experts to speculate that perhaps only a single coin had been struck from the triple die before it was discovered and destroyed by mint officials. However, in 2009, a second example emerged when an Arizona collector who had purchased a large accumulation of unsearched wheat penny rolls at an estate sale decided to go through them methodically, and while examining his third roll of 1953 D pennies, he spotted a coin that looked different, with what appeared to be extra thickness and shadowing in the date. He pulled out his loupe and nearly fell out of his chair when he realized he was looking at the same dramatic tripling effect that characterized the first authenticated example. This second coin was also submitted to PCGS and authenticated as genuine, graded MS66, and due to its higher grade and superior eye appeal, it was valued at $1.80 million, more than double what the first example was worth. And when it came to auction later that year, competitive bidding drove the final price to an incredible $2.40 million, setting a record for any wheat penny sold at public auction and proving that the market for ultra-rare error coins was stronger than ever. The third and final known example of the 1953 D triple die obverse was discovered in 2017 under circumstances that sound almost too good to be true. A teenager in Texas found it while going through his grandfather's old fishing tackle box where loose coins had accumulated over decades, mixed in with lures, hooks, and other gear, and having recently become interested in coin collecting through YouTube videos and online forums, he decided to check the dates and mint marks on the old pennies in the box, and that's when he spotted the 1953 D with unusual characteristics. His parents helped him get the coin authenticated, and when it came back from PCGS with a grade of MS67 and the rare variety designation, the family's life changed overnight because this coin, being in the highest grade of the three known examples, was immediately valued at $6 million based on private offers from collectors and dealers who desperately wanted to add this ultimate rarity to their collections. And while the family has not yet sold the coin publicly, choosing instead to insure it and keep it as a long-term investment and family heirloom, the numismatic world knows that whenever this coin does come to market, it will likely set another record and possibly become the most expensive wheat penny ever sold. What makes the 1953 D triple die so extraordinarily rare is the specific circumstances that created it. During the die-making process at the Denver Mint, a working die used to strike pennies was accidentally hubbed 3 times instead of once or twice, and each hubbing was slightly misaligned from the previous one, creating 3 separate impressions of the design elements that overlap to produce a distinctive tripled image. And while the exact number of coins struck from this die before it was discovered and destroyed is unknown, the fact that only 3 examples have surfaced despite intensive searching by thousands of collectors over 2 decades suggests the number was extremely small, possibly fewer than 10 coins total, making each survivor a true treasure. For collectors hoping to find one of these coins, the key diagnostic features are the tripling visible in the date, particularly the digits 1, 9, and 5, where you should be able to see 3 distinct impressions creating a staggered, thickened appearance, as well as obvious tripling in the letters of liberty, especially the L and B, and in the motto I in God we trust, where the letters should appear to have 3 overlapping images creating a bold, dramatic effect that's impossible to miss once you know what you're looking for. It's important to note that machine doubling, die deterioration, and strike doubling can create superficial effects that might be confused with genuine die errors by inexperienced collectors. So if you think you've found something significant, don't get too excited until you've had it examined by reputable dealers or submitted to a professional grading service for authentication, because the difference between a genuine multi-million-dollar error and a common worthless variety can be subtle to untrained eyes. And the last thing you want is to believe you've struck gold only to discover you have a common coin worth face value. Beyond the ultra-rare triple die variety, there are other 1953 wheat pennies that have significant value to collectors. High-grade uncirculated examples without errors from any of the 3 mints can be worth $15 to $100 or more depending on quality and eye appeal, and even lesser double die varieties that don't command 6-figure prices can still be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars to specialists who collect error coins, making it worthwhile to carefully examine every 1953 wheat penny you encounter, because you never know when you might spot something valuable. The 1953 wheat penny also holds special significance in the broader context of American coinage history, because this was the last year of the relatively high relief design that had been standard since 1909, and starting in 1954, the relief of Lincoln's portrait was lowered slightly to reduce die wear and extend die life, creating a subtle but noticeable difference that collectors can use to date wheat pennies even when the date is worn off. And this makes 1953 coins the end of an era in a sense, the final year of the original high-relief design, adding historical significance to their numismatic value. What's truly mind-blowing about the 1953 wheat penny story is how it demonstrates the unpredictable nature of coin collecting and the way that coins considered common for decades can suddenly become recognized as rare treasures when new varieties are discovered and authenticated. For 50 years after they were minted, 1953 pennies were just ordinary wheat cents that people spent or saved without thinking much about them. But the discovery and authentication of major error varieties transformed certain examples into multimillion-dollar rarities that rank among the most valuable coins in American history, proving that the rare coin market is always evolving and new discoveries are always possible. Think about the implications of this. Right now, as you're listening to this, there could be 1953 wheat pennies sitting in old collections, bank rolls, estate boxes, or even circulating in pocket change that contain errors nobody has discovered yet because not every coin has been examined under magnification by knowledgeable collectors, and every time someone inherits coins or finds an old stash of pennies in their attic or garage, there's a genuine possibility that among those common-looking wheat cents could be a variety worth thousands or millions of dollars just waiting to be recognized. The story of the teenager who found the $6 million penny in his grandfather's tackle box should be inspiration for anyone who has access to old coins or who enjoys searching through penny rolls from banks, because these treasures are real, they're out there, and they're being discovered by regular people who simply take the time to look carefully at their coins and educate themselves about what to look for, which is exactly what you're doing right now by watching this video and learning about these rare varieties. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to examine your 1953 pennies carefully if you have any, because the difference between spending a penny worth 1 cent and discovering one worth $6 million comes down to nothing more than taking a few minutes to look at the date and lettering under magnification and knowing what characteristics indicate a genuine error variety. It's literally the easiest money you could ever make if you're lucky enough to find one of these coins. And here's something else to consider. While the ultra-rare triple die variety might be out of reach for most collectors due to its extreme scarcity, the lesser but still valuable double die varieties from 1953 are absolutely findable if you search enough coins, with new examples being discovered every year by dedicated collectors who buy rolls of wheat pennies from banks or online sellers and go through them systematically looking for errors and varieties, and even finding a minor doubled die worth a few $100s would be an exciting discovery that proves the value of careful coin examination. The 1953 wheat penny also serves as a perfect example of why the hobby of coin collecting remains so popular and engaging even in our digital age. There's something deeply satisfying about holding a piece of history in your hand, examining it closely, learning about the circumstances that made it special, and potentially discovering that what seemed ordinary is actually extraordinary. And unlike many hobbies that require expensive equipment or specialized knowledge to participate in coin collecting can be started with nothing more than pocket change, a magnifying glass, and the willingness to learn. As we close out the story of the 1953 wheat penny and its journey from common pocket change to $6 million treasure, I want you to think about the coins you encounter in your daily life and ask yourself whether you've been paying attention to what's hiding in plain sight. Those pennies you find on the ground, the change you get from purchases, the old coins in your parents' or grandparents' collections, they all have stories to tell, and some of them have stories that come with life, changing values attached. The wheat pennies from 1953, like those from 1950D we discussed earlier, prove that American history is filled with small minting mistakes and variations that have become prized collectibles worth far more than their face value. And the fact that new examples are still being discovered decades after they were minted means that the treasure hunt is never truly over, and the next great discovery could be made by you if you're willing to look carefully and educate yourself about what makes certain coins valuable. So here's my challenge to you. Take the knowledge you've gained from this video about the 1950D wheat penny worth up to $9.5 million and the 1953 wheat penny worth up to $6 million, and go examine your own penny collection or start searching through rolls from your bank, because you now know more than 99% of the population about what to look for in valuable wheat pennies. And armed with that knowledge and a simple magnifying glass, you have just as much chance as anyone else of making a discovery that could change your life forever. Remember, these coins are out there. They're real, people are finding them, and there's absolutely no reason why the next lucky person couldn't be you. So start searching, keep learning, and never underestimate the value of the change in your pocket, because as we've proven today, sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest surprises.